It's been hailed as a landmark sale for New South Wales, so what will the leasing of the Port of Newcastle deliver? Hundreds of millions of dollars will be pumped into the local economy, boosting jobs and growth. The new co-owner is China Merchants, a Chinese government-owned firm with a strong record in expanding and developing ports. But environmentalists have noted new planning controls tied to the sale. They fear big impacts in a harbour infamous for toxic waste. Jackson Vernon investigates.
The Hunter region, the engine room of the New South Wales economy. And at its core is the Port of Newcastle. It's the world's largest coal port, but a new era is falling on the Newcastle landmark. The state government has sold it off.
This is a momentous transaction. It delivers enduring benefits to the community, enduring benefits to the economy.
The sale fetched $1.75 billion, more than $1 billion higher than first estimated. Newcastle will get $340 million for major revitalisation, including a new light rail system.
It's a real vote of confidence, I think, in the value of the port, the future of the port and the Hunter economy.
The city is already riding the wave of its own renaissance. New legal and university precincts are under construction, and new businesses are springing up. President of the Hunter Business Chamber, Richard Anasich, says the sale will help drive this transformation.
The city is changing. It's changing for the better, in my mind. And that will lead to attracting people to come and live and work here. It's a great place to live and work. And that, along with what's happening now with the port, I think it's a great time to be here because I can see new investment, new employment opportunities coming to the Hunter.
It's the latest piece of state infrastructure to go after the sale of Port Botany and Port Kembla. Around Australia, the Port of Brisbane is in private hands, and there are plans to sell the Port of Melbourne.
Long-term prosperity in terms of economic growth, future jobs growth. We couldn't be more pleased in terms of this transaction.
But there's something unique about the Newcastle deal. A 98-year lease over 700 hectares of land.
The people of the Hunter are going to be victims not only of companies trying to rip off the maximum profit, but also companies that are making decisions which are there to benefit the Chinese industries buying coal, Chinese industries exporting goods, not in the best interests of the Hunter.
China Merchants are a Chinese government-owned conglomerate and one half of the winning joint venture, along with funds manager Hastings. One of China's largest shippers, it also has more than $600 billion in property, transport and banking assets. Recently, it's been expanding, snapping up ports in Sri Lanka, Taiwan and Djibouti in the Horn of Africa.
In order to survive, really, they do need to compete globally. Up till now, they've been protected because they've been in China and they're a state entity. But increasingly, the competition is becoming more global.
Part of China Merchants' success story has been the booming port of Shenzhen.
They saw Shenzhen, which at that time was just a small fishing village, as being a possible competitor to Hong Kong. Now, in fact, this last year, I think the figures show that now Shenzhen has actually overtaken Hong Kong as a container port.
Professor Chen says such change could be replicated in Newcastle.
In order to do that, then a lot of other things need to happen. So, I mean, one of the reasons why Shenzhen was so successful was because you've got a lot of manufacturing businesses all located very close to the port. That reduces the cost and makes it much more efficient to manufacture and transport goods overseas.
Resources analyst Colin Randall believes the new buyers are looking for expansion.
If you look for Newcastle, it's not only coal, it's cruise ships, it's grain, aluminium, alumina, pitch, heavy steel, steel imports, equipment. It can be a very diverse port.
Locals already fear impacts if a planned fourth coal terminal gets underway.
There are serious problems of air pollution at the moment. those problems will only increase if the volumes go up.
The sale locks the Hunter Valley into the dirty industries and the dangerous import-exports, which have impacts not just for safety but also for the community's health. Instead of looking at a port that could provide for a boom in manufacturing in the Hunter, what the Baird government has done is lock the whole Hunter Valley into being a large coal mine.
Experts suspect the new owners will need to reduce port costs to boost activity, including a major dredging job.
Bringing bigger ships in could lower the costs, but to do that, the cost to deepen the harbour entrance would be extraordinarily high. But at some time in the future, the new owners may consider that.
Standing in their way, nearby internationally protected habitats and long-standing pollution controls. The land surrounding the port harbours contamination from decades of heavy industry, including the former BHP steelworks site.
Things like the drainage works, things like the dredging, things like the increased traffic, ship movements that are coming through this area as a result of future developments do all have the potential to stir up these contaminants which are presently in the environment.
Environmentalists fear toxic impacts, particularly given recent changes to state environmental planning regulations tied with the sale. The changes allow port streamlined approvals, including power to self-assess and approve capital dredging of up to 100,000 cubic metres of excavated material.
This is a 98-year lease. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we're very fearful that the decisions that have been made to make the port a more attractive commodity have actually reduced our ability to have influence in it and increased our ability to, or increase the likelihood that this development could lead to serious environmental impacts.
There is still a very robust planning framework in place. There is still rigorous environmental controls in place, which the private operator is still subjected to in the same way that the government operator was. So, look, I think this is very important to note that the planning in terms of a framework is there under the planning SEP, the port SEP.
Hastings says it will continue with an ongoing program of environmental remediation and a comprehensive environmental management plan will be prepared. For Newcastle now, it's just a waiting game for the keys to be handed over. Many in the community say the region deserves more money from the deal, given the higher than expected sale price. By all accounts, that's looking promising.
We will come back to the community once we settle the transaction later on this month, but it is going to be terrific news for the community when we make that further announcement.
And that statement from Hastings will be on our website.